Okay, are we good to start?
Okay. Yeah.
Excellent. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Sorry for the delay to starting. I'm Councillor Jake Short, the chair of the licensing committee for this meeting on the 29th of June. Firstly, welcome to you all for joining me. The vice chair of the committee is Councillor Marlene Heron, and if I lose connection, she is armed and ready to take over should the need arise. And just for everyone's information, the meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. And just before we get started, I'll just mention some key points about having successful meetings online. You might know them all by now, but so when you're not speaking, if you could turn your camera and microphone off, that will help to save with bandwidth. And it will also help with the live stream, because if you pick up background noise, you'll appear on the screen. I'll give you plenty of time for any member to speak on any item, and I'll try to make clear which item we're on as we go through. I'll also take you all in order that you appear when you request to speak in the chat, and I will try to get through you all, but please only speak when called upon. When you're called to speak, if you could turn your camera on, if you're happy to do so. And when you're speaking for the first time, could you please just introduce yourself? So your title and name, and officers, if you could state your name and title as well, please. To ask to speak, could you notify me in the chat, please? And finally, on some votes, I may ask members to comment in the chat. That will save us having to go to a roll call vote, but we do have facilities to have a roll call vote should members feel we need to. As we begin the meeting, I'll ask all of us to state that you're present, and also whether you have any declarations of interest. The clerk will go through this in alphabetical order. And if you're present in the meeting but have your camera switched off and don't want to turn it on, can you please state that when we come to you, please? Kathy, would you be okay to do the roll now?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Members, as I read your name, could you turn on your microphone and your camera and state if you're present and if you have any declarations of interest? After you've spoken, if you could turn your microphone and your camera off. Councillor Marlene Heron.
Present, thank you. And no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor David Bartolucci.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Present. No declarations of interest.
Sorry to interrupt. Welcome, Mr. Withy. We haven't quite got to your part yet. I've just seen you come into the meeting. Councillor Richard Clifton.
Yes, hi, I'm here and I've no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Steve Cook.
Yeah, hello, I'm present. Good morning to everybody, and no interest here.
Thank you. Councillor Jean Crosby.
Good morning, everyone. I'm present and no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Barry Lewis.
Good morning. Present and no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Williams.
Good morning. I'm present and I have no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Eric Allen.
Present, and I've declared that I am a member of the Local Government Association's Safer and Stronger Communities Board and the National Spokesman on Licensing.
Thank you. Councillor Martina Allen.
Present, and I have no declaration of interest. Thank you.
And we have apologies from Councillor Tim Crowley. Councillor Catherine Gray.
Morning, everybody. I'm present and no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor James McDermott Hill.
Good morning. Yes, present and no declarations of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Shields.
Yes, present, no declaration of interest.
Thank you. Councillor Gillian Green.
Present, no declarations of interest.
Councillor Jake Short.
Present and no declaration of interest.
And also on the call and able to present or take questions later on, we have David Kingston, Licensing and Environmental Compliance Team Leader, and Nick Cloak, Lead Officer for Licensing. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Apart from Councillor Crowley, do we have any other apologies for absence? I don't think so.
No.
No? Okay. We've done the declarations of interest. So moving on to item 4, which is just the minutes of the previous meeting. Could we just approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of February, please? If you want to dissent on any of the items, please do say so now. But are you happy to accept the minutes as read?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Yes, I'm happy.
Yep. Okay, thank you. And also the minutes of the subcommittee held on the 10th of June. So that would be either myself, Councillor Heron, or Councillor Green.
Yes, they're fine.
Yep. Brilliant. Thank you.
I agree the minutes too. Sorry, Jake.
Yep. Thank you. So I'll take those as approved, and I'll sign those physically outside of the meeting once social distancing restrictions have been lifted. To move on to the main agenda, we do have a member of the public joining us, who has joined the meeting. Sorry, Councillor Allen, are you trying to raise a point?
Yes, within the minutes we had the. Within the minutes, we also had an issue relating to the appointment of a working group to look at the market stall positions. This still hasn't taken place. So can we have an update on when that is going to happen, please?
Okay. I think so. Following the meeting, committee services have appointed that the committee would be best placed to report to HEB, I believe. If they make any recommendations relating to the licensing committee, then the task and finish group will make those recommendations to us. Kathy, do you have anything you would wish to bring in for that item, for that?
No, we can find information and update where we're at on that.
Well, the point is that the task and finish group hasn't actually done anything so far. So we can't report to HEB until such time as we have actually met and looked at the position of the market stalls, etc.
Okay, could that be looked into, Kathy?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Is that okay? Councillor Clifton wanted to raise a point very quickly as well, and then we'll move to the main agenda.
Yes, sorry. I'm going to ask, just while you're going through the minutes, there are some new members of the committee. I'm one, Councillor Cook, I think it's another. Now, we've been promised some training which would enable us to sit on these subcommittees. I keep being promised this, but nothing seems to transpire. I don't know whether I didn't know that we know where we stand on it. Thank you.
We can't actually sit on a subcommittee until you've had training,
Yes.
So I think it's important that that is given to the new members.
Yes, that's true. Eric's gone. Nick, would you be okay to come in on that briefly?
Yeah, sure, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Yes, we are aware that there are new members, and we're aware that there are training requirements for those councillors who have recently joined us, who have sat on previous licensing committees. I'm thinking Councillor Shields, for example. there's no requirement to sit full training with us. For others, it is something we are looking at with our colleagues in Democratic Services. We'll have to obviously arrange something to be done online, and an email will follow this meeting just to confirm up some dates.
Well, I have sat on the committee before and had training before, so maybe that applies to me as well.
Okay, Councillor Clifton. As I say, we'll send some email around to all members, and we're firm up where we are at the moment and how many members will need to have full training, how many will just require some updates. Obviously, legislation has changed fairly recently, but we will sort that out as a matter of urgency.
Okay. So, Councillor Shields, you wanted to join the task and finish group. I'm sure that can be arranged. If we take that outside of the meeting, is that okay? Councillor Bartolucci wanted to come in as well. Could we make it a quick comment, please, so we can move to the agenda, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. No, it was just to pick up on Councillor Allen's comment. I think moving forward, it was seen that obviously licensing being a regulatory committee that sits within HEB, that from a strategic position, it was best perhaps in terms of the strategy of the High Street to sit within HEB. Obviously, the opposition have members on the HEB committee, so any questions, any task and finish group in terms of the strategy can be best placed there. Any as far as I'm aware, and wholeheartedly accept and agree, any specific licensing issue that comes out of that broader context will be fed down to licensing to consider. But I think it was, looking at it, I think it sits much better with HEB currently, and then, like I say, licensing matters would be sort of fed through to this committee.
Yeah, exactly. So moving on, we do have a member of the public who has joined us. Thank you, Mr. Withy, for joining us. You've raised a response to the public notice. Thanks for joining us. And that relates to item 5, which we'll now move on to, which is the street trading review, the review of consultation responses. Could I just ask David Kingstone, leader of licensing environmental compliance team leader, to present our report, please?
Thank you, Chair. As you've explained, my name is David Kingstone. I'm team leader for licensing environmental compliance with the Kingston and Sutton Shared Environment Service. And members will recall that a resolution was made by this committee at the meeting in February, which gave an intention to amend our street trading policy to introduce a commodities list, which included restricted commodities that could not be sold by, could not normally be sold by persons trading from a street trading license. Following that meeting, officers completed the first part of the statutory public notice process, as is required by the legislation, in order to enable essentially the making of any resolution at this meeting. Following the consultation period that was set out on the public notices, this report sets out the responses to the notices, seeks members' comments on those, and where appropriate, requests the making of resolutions so as to enact any changes to the street trading license regime arising from those conversations. This began in July 2019 when the committee agreed to review aspects of the way street trading is regulated, and following consultation determined in February this year that a commodities list, including a list of restricted special consideration goods and services that are not normally permitted to be sold under a street trading permission, would be created. A public notice was placed in the Sutton Guardian newspaper on the 5th of March, giving notice of the intention to introduce a restricted items list. One response was received in relation to the public notice, and this was received on the 18th of March from an existing street trading license holder. This response was resubmitted with a manuscript addendum on the 5th of June 2020, and a copy of the correspondence is given at Appendix B to this report. The response to the consultation raised concerns that the sale of ball-bearing guns, BB guns, will be caught by the restricted items list. It is considered that BB guns fall within the special consideration category of firearms, including replicas and ammunition, and therefore would not normally be permitted to be sold under a street trading licence. Members are invited to consider, in light of the correspondence, whether a change in the restricted items list is needed before making a resolution to introduce any such list. Any changes agreed by this committee will be reflected on the Council street trading guidance provided on our website in order to assist applicants, prospective traders and other interested parties. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, David. Do members have any questions for Mr. Kingstone? Could you indicate in the chat, please? I've already got Councillor Shields. Would you want to come in?
That's it. I think I'm on. Out of the list, it appears to me that there's only one trader selling anything on the list. Was there a reason to build up a list, which seems quite extensive, given that any shop in the high street could sell any of these items? What are we trying to achieve? It doesn't seem to be a way of stopping any of these items being sold in the high street if they come from a shop or even one of the pop-up shops. So why is the market being given such stringent, classifications of sale of goods? Do you get that?
Chair, did you want me to respond?
Oh, yes, please, if you could, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor, as I mentioned in my report, this was started back in June last year, and I think followed some concerns by members that items were being sold in the marketplace. I guess the reason it's coming around here is that the council, by giving people permission to trade on its land, has an ability to regulate what is sold on by persons using its land, and I think that's why we're doing this. I think in a way, shape, or form. I think some of the other councillors might be able to give a little bit more history, because obviously it's a member-led decision. This, so it may be better, Councillor Short, if we call on other councillors to contribute.
Yes, Councillor Bartolucci wanted to come in, and then Councillor Allen.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, sorry, I've got a screaming child in the background. I'm not sure if you can hear that. That's quite off-putting. I might have to go in a second if he doesn't pipe down. My wife is here. I've not abandoned my children. No, in terms of the history here, basically in the last administration, towards the end of that term, it became apparent that we had a very extensive, picking up on Councillor Shields' comments about this seems to be quite a broad list of items. I actually respectfully disagree, because had he seen the items that weren't permissible to be sold on the high street, he would have been absolutely shocked. And so I remember, just to add in, just to flesh it out, because I think it is important. I know we don't want to dwell in the past, we want to move forward, but I think we have travelled quite a distance. And I know that towards the end of the last administration, when Richard Winch was the licensing manager, we were asked whether we wanted to relax the items that were permissible to be sold, of which, like I say, there were numerous, absolutely numerous of them. And the gentleman who's joining us today, I'm pretty sure would testify to that. So it was actually voted through on a gnat's hair, to be perfectly honest, because it was a balanced vote, and the chair at the time, who was Councillor Burstow, had the casting vote, and she fortunately fell on the side of relaxing the commodities list. Of course, with that relaxation, it presented us with a slightly different challenge, which was, okay, well, we relaxed it all, so we're happy that market holders can sell a broader width, be it food, be it whatever it is, even coffee and so on and so forth, which was actually banned. you know, what is it that we're looking to, you know, are there any areas that we need to look out for? And a few items were chosen, and you could probably see that list if you ask Nick and David. I actually think it's a rather restricted list in terms of the fact that there are very few items on there, and I think pretty much most people would look at that list and think, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Obviously, times change, but I think we've kept it to the minimum, to be perfectly honest. I've lost my train of thought. But yeah, but basically, I think we've done our best to try to engage with the vibrancy of the market. Obviously, it's not for me to decide who sells what and in what capacity, but to be given a broader list of things that you can do, I think is a positive. And obviously, when we started, you know, when we came into the second, or for me, the second administration from 2018, we had to pick up on those things. And David and Nick kindly looked into it and saw that there were outstanding items from the previous licensing committee papers that hadn't been dealt with. And so I think this is kind of a continuum of that. You know, it's not penalising anybody. It's not looking to penalise anybody. It's trying to come to some reasoned decisions. Obviously, opening up the market and opening up what they can sell is an important factor, which I think is what we're trying to achieve. I appreciate that there may be disagreements on certain items, and that's fine. But I think on the whole, it's been a move towards the right direction, because we're looking to free up the market. We're looking for people to be able to engage in different ways and offer different services and products.
Yes, I think I would broadly agree there. Councillor Shields, you wanted to respond, and then I'll bring Councillor Allen in.
Well, the outcome of restricted lists is the entire polar opposite to what Councillor Bartolucci is saying. He wants to open up the market and become more accessible. It is the total opposite. Can we not see what we're doing here? Now, it's well known that this council wants to close down the market. They've been incrementally destroying it year on year, which is why I do keep a weather eye on the market, which is why I asked to come on the licensing committee to try and keep some reasoned debate on what is actually, I believe, for some councillors, is a bit of a form of horribleness on the market. And the market traders do feel like this. They don't feel like they're welcomed by the council. It's almost a sort of a continued set of near harassment. And this is just the latest thing, to open up the market by restricting what can be sold. And I think we have so many empty shops in the high street now, and I know that's no particular blame on anybody for that. We have so many empty shops. Any of these shops could open up and sell any of these items, except for live animals. I think that's a special case. But realistically, what are we trying to achieve? If we want more traders, we need a diversity of goods, don't we?
I understand, but again, coming to what that is exactly what Councillor Bartolucci was saying. What we are doing in this process is opening things up away from quite a prescriptive list of things that you can sell towards a list that is reflective of what we as an authority would prefer our market traders not sell. That's the purpose of what we're doing here.
Tell me this. Does the council
Councillor Shields, I didn't call for you to speak, please.
Well, I don't think we need to. This is a debate, isn't it?
I believe I do. I have, however, got other councillors who wish to speak, and I don't want any one member to monopolise the time of this committee. Could I bring Councillor Allen in, and then we have Councillors Heron, Crosby, and I think that's it. Is that okay?
Connor.
Okay, it's Councillor Allen again. I was very pleased to hear that Councillor Burstow, when she was chair of the licensing committee back in 2018, was very keen to open up the market, as Councillor Bartolucci has said. But looking at the list, the one item that does seem to be contentious is the one which Councillor Shields mentioned, which is the BB guns. Now, there is no legislation that says you can't sell BB guns. And as I said, any shop could open up and sell them. They're classified as a toy. They're freely available on the internet. So I don't see why we should be particularly excluding this one item from street trading. But also, I revert back to the task and finish group, which we were supposed to have set up, and that was with a view to actually looking at the market stalls, because the last meeting we had, there was talk about reducing the number of market stalls. And that is not what we want within Sutton. We want to open up the market. We want to encourage more market traders to be here. And actually introducing a banned list is detrimental to expanding the market. Thank you.
I disagree, but Councillor Heron wanted to come in.
Oh, sorry, how can you disagree? If you're banning them from selling items, you're banning them from actually being market traders. So you have to agree with what I'm saying, not disagree. Sorry on that point.
No, I don't agree. I think it is perfectly reasonable for an authority to have a list of items that it does not want sold on its street markets. Councillor Heron wanted to come in.
To say that the council wants to get rid of the market is a complete and utter rubbish. Councillor Shields will remember when we started work on the Northern Gateway. We had some money there. It was called the Northern Gateway Project. And we changed the name to Marketplace Sutton because that is the area that we want an active market. It's the area where we had the entrepreneurs market to try and draw trade down to the bottom of that market. In some cases, that was met with a bit of hostility. We have had successful Sutton putting on events down the end of the market to actually take up some space to increase the footfall, etc. And during the time that we were doing Marketplace Sutton, we did lots of consultation. We had lots of events down there to encourage people down there. So I think to say that we want to get rid of the market, there's no justification in that. What we do want is for that market to be pretty special, that people actually go there, more people go there, more people use it. And with the sporadic attendance and things like that, it is not getting to where we want to be. But this one item, if I could say, it may not be, as Councillor Allen says, but would you like your child hit with one of these guns? It can do real damage. We got rid of bows and arrows years ago. There's a lot of things that we used to sell willy-nilly and we no longer sell. Are we saying that a restricted item that doesn't meet a safety standard should be on sale in a market because you can sell it in a shop? I don't think so. I think shops are much more controlled, the market trading, and also a bit less likely, or there's sort of security in place. And I really think that this is a dangerous toy, and as such, we shouldn't be doing it. I mean, if a teddy bear has a spike in its eye or something like that, we stop selling them, you know, and it is dangerous. And therefore, you know, perhaps they've got a place in funfair stores or something like that, but I really don't think we should be selling them on the market because we don't know how many children have been injured by them, or adults even.
Okay, could so Councillor Shields wanted to respond. If we could bring you in and then come to Councillor Crosby, is that okay?
Yeah, thank you. I think really what's piqued my interest, Marlene. I mean, the list of what could be dangerous is endless. The guy in the next stall sells hammers and Stanley knives, and and bits of paper. You wouldn't want a paper cut, would you? Because that would be nasty as well. Come on. We are a council trying to usurp the law of the land, and of course, when this list, if it is offered up to a magistrate's court for ratification, as it were, they will ask for evidence. And as far as I know, there is no evidence of any fault or harm come to anybody from the sale of any goods on the market. I mean, we mustn't dwell just on BB guns, plastic pellet guns. We mustn't dwell just on those. There's various items that are sold on the market today and will continue to be sold, which are I think I'd rather not be hit by a hammer, which is freely sold, than a plastic pellet, to be quite honest with you. So let's keep it rational. And I think what's piqued my interest greatly is the letter from Mr. with the market trader. I think through you, Chair, would it be ideal to bring in the market trader now?
We've still got members who want to.
I'll be quiet then.
Yeah, no, not quite what I said, but we will. I am conscious that he is waiting to speak, but we will bring him in once members have all had the chance to speak. Could I go to Councillor Crosby?
Thank you, Chair. I was actually Vice Chair when Councillor Burstow was the Chair. And at that time, when this came up originally, we had a petition from Restorative Justice with over 600 signatures on there regarding the BB guns. That was why this was raised at that time. There was also other members that had raised it, that BB guns were being sold on the market. Now, Councillor Shields has just said that there are no cases where children have been injured. Unfortunately, you are completely wrong, because if you like to look up damage that's been done by BB guns, children have lost their eyes. They have near enough killed children. These are ball bearings, not plastic. And even if they were plastic, they could still blind somebody. The idea of licensing is to make our areas safe. And I'm afraid that these guns are not safe. In the hands of a child, hammers are in the hands of adults. They know what to do. But you are buying a lethal weapon for a child. And I'm sorry, I have grandchildren. I would not like to know that any of my grandchildren would ever own one, no matter about fire one at somebody else. And shops are regulated, but I'm not even sure that any of our shops actually store them. I don't know, because I haven't been in to buy one, and I wouldn't want to buy one. So as far as I'm concerned, we stand by what we're saying. There are lists and lists and lists of children that have been injured by these guns, and we would be really not doing our job by keeping our children safe. Thank you.
Okay, could I come to Councillor Clifton, and then Councillor McDermott Hill, and then finally Councillor Green?
Okay, Chair. Well, can I just say, I'm a new member of this committee, so I've just read the paper, and I'm absolutely astonished by this discussion. I mean, I really couldn't have expected anything like this. So there's been a statement made, the council is trying to close down the market. I've never heard that. I've been a councillor for 10 years. The only conversations I've ever been involved in with colleagues about the market is, how can we do something to stimulate or improve the market? The idea is trying to close it down. So I read this paper, and all it says to me is, I deduce from it, there's been some discussion in the past about the market, and a small change in policy is proposed to have this list. And at the end of it is what is called a special consideration commodities list. So can I just read it? It says the council has determined that the following commodities will be given special consideration before holders of street trading licenses, temporary street trading permits, or special markets are licensed to trade. It actually does not say in the paper that these are banned. It simply says that there has to be special consideration, and perhaps officers can explain to me what that means. Because when it says before holders are licensed to trade, that implies that they could be licensed to trade. So perhaps the wording of the paper seems to me to not to conform to what people are saying at this committee. Perhaps they can explain that. And there's then a list of 10 items, which includes explosives, firearms, live animals. Now, Councillor Allen said that anyone could open a shop in the high street selling any of these things. You know, why is there? Councillor Shields said special consideration is being given to the market. So can I go along tomorrow and open a shop in the high street selling alcohol, selling explosives, selling firearms, selling live animals? It's quite a short list, you know. And these things, no, clearly you can't do that. They do need some special consideration, as it says in this. It's a short, restricted list. There's been one letter of commenting on this, and we're going to hear from the author of the letter shortly. I look forward to that. And that's just about one highly specific thing, which is ball-bearing guns. Ball-bearing guns. I'm astonished to learn that these are sold. I can remember when I was a kid, I remember we had pop guns, and I remember a kid at school firing marbles from these pop guns, very nearly taking somebody's eye out and taking the eye out of a cat locally. And I remember my parents being really horrified by this. And I as a kid, I say, well, what's wrong with them? I can see, why they really are horrific. You could, and thank you, Councillor Crosby and Councillor Heron, for telling us about this. There have been incidents with these, and obviously that is quite different from Councillor Shields says. It says it's like a hammer. Same level of risk as a hammer. It's not the same level of risk as a hammer. A hammer is sold to people for use for a particular purpose. But these ball-bearing guns just strike me as fairly dangerous. But look, if at the end of the day we've got something before us which is a short list of things that it says requires special consideration, and the only thing that's been raised is ball-bearing guns, which seems to be something extremely dangerous. This doesn't seem to me to be a sort of massive issue of policy that generates such a large number of people debating it for a couple of hours. It seems to me that the conclusion is fairly obvious that you shouldn't be selling ball-bearing guns. I think what is proposed here by way of policy, if you get behind the sort of rhetoric around it, saying what's actually proposed here, seems to me to be fairly non-contentious, actually. Thank you.
Okay, well put. Councillor McDermott Hill, did you want to come in? Just to say to remind members that A, the chat is being recorded, and B, Councillor Lewis, I do see your question. We will have a debate after Mr. Withy has spoken. If I could ask you to hold on to that question until then, is that okay?
Thank you,
Councillor McDermott Hill.
Yes, thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak. I just want to pick up on what I think hopefully should be quite an enlightening thing for lightning speech from Mr. Withy, because the letter which he's written to the committee, the market trader in question who sells these BB guns, and I have to say I've got some degree of sympathy with the sort of the safety angle on BB guns. However, he's the market trader, and not Mr. Withy, but the market trader who sells these guns has made the assertion that if he wasn't to sell these items, then he would lose a considerable amount of his income. Now, I think at the moment we have to take that as a committee. At the moment, we have to take that at face value. But I would be interested in sort of having some evidence of that that considerable loss of income. And that's something I think the committee maybe could look at at a later date. Now, whether that we can allow for that, I'm not sure. But again, I'd like to hear what Mr. Withy has to say on that particular issue. So I agree about the safety issue with the ball bearings, but I think we have to be slightly cautious if it turns out that this market trader is going to be put out of business because of this one item. Thank you.
Okay. you raise a point about bringing Mr. Withy in. Councillor Green, would you be okay to speak during the debate, or would you want to come in now? I'm conscious that Mr. Withy will want to, I imagine, want to give his representation.
I just have one comment, Chair, and if you don't mind, I'd like to say it now. Well, actually, I've got two comments. First is, I don't think guns in any form, I don't care what they are the right thing for us to be selling to adults, let alone children. And I fully appreciate that people earn their living from them. But in the view of what's been going on recently, whether they're a BB gun or a gun that fires air rifles, whatever, I personally cannot be part of something that goes completely against what I stand for. So I'm really sorry if people's livelihoods are affected, especially in the climate we're in. But my next door neighbour, her little boy of 7 is absolutely gun obsessed, and I don't like to see this. Says she, from a child that used to run around shooting caps out of her handgun, but you do grow up. So that is the only point I really wanted to make, that we shouldn't be supporting the sale of any guns. Now, I take Councillor Shields' point about hammers, knives particularly, but when children are young, they can become very easily influenced. And I personally will not be voting for BB guns or any form of gun to be sold on our high streets. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well put, Councillor Green. Could I bring in Mr. Withy now? Thank you for bearing with us. I think we may have slightly jumped the gun, no pun intended, and moved to a debate before bringing you in, Mr. Withy. But if you would like to speak to your representation now, is that okay?
Mr. Withy, press *6 to unmute your phone.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. As I said, morning everyone. Thanks for bringing me in on this meeting. You'll have to bear with me. Obviously, I'm not used to meetings, etc. Anyway, look, I've written a short statement which I'd like to read. If I go too fast or someone doesn't hear anything, can you just obviously tell me? But firstly, I'd like to say I've been in touch with a lady called Kathy, very pleasant. I spoke to her, I think it was Tuesday, saying I was a techno-moron. Kathy kindly said she would send the agenda through the post to me, saying I would probably get it Friday or at the latest Saturday. Sadly, I still haven't received it. So I haven't got all the information in front of me, but I know roughly what this meeting is about. So I'd like to read a statement I have written. Yeah. Firstly, it's not illegal to sell BB guns in this country. They're sold everywhere from shops to internet markets, etc. The way the survey was written, it described the product as firearms, which I feel is misleading and inaccurate, as the definition of a firearm states that the item is lethal. I've been selling BB guns for over 12 years and have never had any report to me or by the police of any injury or incident involving my product I sell. I have a strict policy of not selling to under 18, so I do not sell to children whatsoever. They have to be over 18. I've also had the police on the stall, and I've been in touch with the trading standards. I have posters up, and I have posters up saying that they're blue and bright orange. So they don't look like a real gun whatsoever. They don't fire ball bearings. They fire plastic bullets, light plastic bullets as well. I always ask for ID, passports, or driving license. On top of this, as I said, my BB guns are bright orange or blue. In 12 years, I've only had 2 complaints among many thousands of people that have walked past my stall, and neither of these complaints have bought anything off my stall. So in other words, the complaints have nothing, they're nothing to do with me personally. They could have been with other issues somewhere else. As everyone is aware, retail is going through its toughest times and possibly heading for our biggest recession ever. If you stop me selling BB guns, it will be even harder to make a living from an ever dwindling income. I'd go as far as to say that it will send me onto the adult queue, the Social Security. This is causing me a hell